Kaboom! Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Starting the Wave podcast. I am your host, Matt, and it's a real pleasure and privilege to be here serving you today. And the purpose of this podcast, I call it a fractal cast, but we'll just call it a podcast for now. The purpose of this podcast is to give you hope and clarity, to give you some belief and conviction. And it's really designed to try and help you deal with and process this incredibly complicated world we've found ourselves in. And this podcast has taken thousands of hours of research, many, many years of my life to create and to try and build something that I can give to you, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you're listening to this. Just thanks for your time, and thanks for however this podcast has come into your life, believing whoever it was that told you like, hey, this thing might be able to help you start to process this world that we're in. And the purpose of this podcast, the first 3 seasons, is to give you an anatomy of the Armageddon crisis. The first 3 seasons are maybe another title we could call it is the Armageddon Anxiety Toolkit. And I'm trying to offer you, if you would like, some hope and to see the path forward, to know what to do if you're out there. A lot of the people I work with have a really deep sense of powerlessness right now. They feel like big business is kind of suffocating the earth and everyone's willpower. They can kind of see that our relationships with other human beings aren't what they used to be, and we're slowly being drawn away from each other. We're being drawn away from the earth. We're being drawn away from art. And we're living in this fake world when we need to be living in the real world more than any other time basically humans have ever lived. And, this is an emergency situation, and this isn't a dress rehearsal. There is no Power Rangers coming along to fix this for us. We're going to need to figure out how to do it on our own. And that sense of powerlessness that you feel, what I want to try and offer to you is that you don't actually have a memory of deciding to feel that powerlessness. When you were 6, you didn't have it, get out your diary and be like, dear diary, I want to feel really powerless when I'm older. And yet you do. These problems of the world, the climate crisis, the obesity epidemic, the addictions of the world, the social media, like the big plastic crisis, or the poison in the world, or the poison in the air, or the poison in the water, like all of this stuff that's happening and seems really out of control. It can seem really far away and really complicated and hard to understand. And it can make you feel really powerless in terms of knowing what to do about it. There's a lot of really good folk in the world. People who don't want to be famous, people who don't want to live some big fancy life, but just want to spend time with their family and their loved ones, work with purpose in the world, have enough money to not be stressed, and really just want to create a wonderful life for themselves, their community, and for the next generation so that they can also enjoy a great life here on the earth. And I reckon that there's more of those people in the world than there are people who really want to destroy the world. And one of the easiest ways to start to comprehend what's happening here in the world is to understand that there are some people, some humans alive today who, just like you, wake up every day and get out of bed, and they feel however their body feels, probably feel like they need to go to the toilet, and they go to the toilet, and then they get in the shower, and they're standing there in the shower or whatever, and they're planning their day. Yeah, there's some people just like that, if you flew to their country, you could get in a car from the airport, get in an Uber, might be a really expensive Uber, that would take you to this person's house, and you could knock on their door. They probably wouldn't answer, but you could knock on their door and talk to them. There's just some people, some real human beings walking around who this world is going to plan for them. And there's a lot of, with all due respect, quite naive people in the world who don't understand, yes, this world is obviously broken if you're a good person. You're looking at this world and be like, wow, this world's broken. But if you're a person who maybe doesn't care about your character, this is a great time. And if you want to start to comprehend, how did this, I was at a dinner party a couple of weeks ago, and the grandma at the dinner party, this matriarch, basically in the middle of the conversation, was talking about how, there's less chocolate in the chocolate bars than when, that is the same chocolate bar, but there's less chocolate in it than when she was growing up. And she said, there's such dishonesty. And then she just said, like, what has happened to our world? Why is our world broken? And there's an obvious answer. There's an answer to that question. And that's why what I want to encourage you to do is to not be naive, right? This thing has been designed by human beings. This world, this crisis that we're in is just because of human beings. And the way that we know that is because if we took all the human beings off the planet and we put them in Venus or something, wherever else, obviously the human beings are going to have a bad time. It's yellow in Venus, right? But here on the Earth, all of the Earth's problems go away. Like all the animals will rebound, the climate will heal itself, like everything will just eventually, over like 2 to 5 million years, go back to all good. And so it's so important to understand it's just human beings sitting in a room, just like if you have meetings at your work, like they go to work and they stand in a meeting or sit in a meeting just like you do, and their meeting is how can we keep breaking the world, right? And once you are willing to acknowledge that, like, again, I can't really talk about we'll get into this a little bit. I choose just not to talk about the future with people at dinner parties because, it just gets this awkward conversation about receipts for me. And like, okay, well, how are you going to back up what you just said? Because personally, I don't believe we live in the post-truth age. Yeah, I think that's a construction of big business. Yeah, I'm pretty sure steam just still turns into steam at the same temperature every day, even though we're in the post-truth age now. Yeah, pretty sure. Still need a womb to create a baby, even though we're in the post-truth age. No, I think that's all big business. And what I want to do is show you from like a technical and tactical perspective, like how big business are making us feel powerless. Because that feeling of powerlessness, the reason I wanted to say, hey, you don't remember actually choosing that feeling, is because that feeling was educated into you. And what I want to do is show you how to counteract that. This is not a skeptical podcast. And what I mean by that is I'm trying to just point out all the problems in the world. No, I'm trying to be a part of the solution. And there's a very obvious, clear path that you can be a part of if you want for us to be able to heal this world. But we're going to have to we're going to have to talk a fair bit about it. It's going to obviously take a lot of stuff. A lot of things are going to have to change. So I want to give you a plan that you can be a part of. And that's why this podcast is called the Starting the Wave podcast. It's not called the Matt Hope Bonanza podcast. What a terrible name for a podcast. Yeah, it's called the Starting the Wave podcast. And it's because I need your help. Yeah, and we need each other's help. And we all need to come together right now. And, I just feel like if all the good people in the world teamed up, there's way more of us than like the 1%. And maybe we could just figure this stuff out. All right, so that's who maybe should listen to this podcast. Who shouldn't listen to this podcast? Yeah, just anyone from the 1%, because I'm going to explain to the 99%, to all of us, how your playbook works. Yeah, because I've been studying you for a long time, and you're a bunch of, and by the way, there is going to be some swear words in this podcast, try and keep it minimal, but you're a bunch of sneaky fuckers. But I can see you. Yeah, I know exactly how you're building this matrix that you're putting into our heads. And guess what? I've figured out how to remove it. And I'm going to teach everyone in the world how to do it. So yeah, that's how I feel about you. And then second thing, just anyone who doesn't like women or gender diverse beings. Yeah. Yeah, anyone who doesn't like any of those categories of people. Yeah, women who are legends. That's how I personally feel about women, and that's just me speaking on behalf of myself. Yeah, I think women are the dopest beings in the multiverse, happen to be married to a woman. So yeah, that's my perspective on women, just speaking on behalf of myself. And obviously gender diverse beings. Yeah, all you people giving people who are gender diverse the business. Yeah, how about you stop? Yeah, and you back up. Yeah. Oh, look at me, I'm so hectic. Nah, you're just a silly Billy. All right, so before we get any further, your probably next question is, well, who the hell are you to think you understand the Armageddon crisis, Matt? And I think that's a great question. I've never even heard of you. Yep. And you don't even have any followers. Also factual. Yeah, across all levels, very factual. And for me, that's actually a good thing. Yeah, I dropped out of medical school 10 years ago, 2015. I dropped out of medical school because I believed that really since the age of 13, when I learned about the climate crisis, that big business were going to kill the earth. and that they were going to keep accelerating, and that I wanted to make sure that in the chance that, because again, I learned about the climate crisis when I was 13, that when I was 13, the whole conversation was how are we going to stop it and what are we going to do? And there wasn't enough conversation of, well, what happens if they accelerate? What happens if they see that they're killing the world and they accelerate because they don't care, because there's some people on the earth who would rather kill the earth than allow the earth to be at peace. And if you can understand why they want that, if you can understand from their perspective why they think they want the earth to die rather than to be at world peace, you can start to comprehend how we got here. And you can start to understand this world, and you can start to put the jigsaw puzzle pieces together. And when I was in medical school, my dream was to become a neurosurgeon. I've had the misfortune, I guess, of living a very challenging life, but PTSD for decades, and I've had to overcome a lot of challenge and depression and anxiety, just to still be here. And I've had multiple spinal fusions and been involved in a lot of trauma, and I've had to have neurosurgery. And my dream as a med student was to become a neurosurgeon to basically help kids who'd had to go through stuff like I had. And so that's why I was in med school. And when I was in med school on the second day of med school, my gut told me to drop out because of this. That basically, it's big business. If like World War III happens or the climate crisis gets bad enough, and like we stop being able to run hospitals because they blow up, or like society fractures enough that there's no more hospitals, like what was the point of my career? Like why bother becoming a surgeon if there's some people who were going to ruin my ability to heal the world and help the world heal and stuff. So 10 years ago, in 2015, I dropped out of med school, and I haven't had a personal social media account since 2014. I'm a business owner and a founder, so I've used social media for what its purpose is, which is advertising. And social media is the life insurance, because again, if you take out life insurance, you get the money not when you give birth. It's not the act of life that triggers the insurance. No, it's someone dying. That's what triggers the insurance payout. And so it's death insurance, but death insurance makes us feel uncomfortable, so we call it life insurance. Yeah, social media is just advertising. Yeah, they're just business to business companies. Again, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on advertising through social media, and I can get someone from Facebook on the phone. And that's how if you're out there and you're just like using Instagram, that you think that TikTok, what is it? Did the new things like TikTok is brain rot? Yeah, but Instagram doesn't turn your brain into ham. Yeah, it's so curious to me that no one thinks that social media companies, those advertising businesses, because again, that's how they make their money. They get paid to advertise. So if instead of calling it social media, you call it advertising, and instead of calling it your social media algorithm, you call it your advertising algorithm, and instead of calling them social media influencers, we call them advertising contractors. Maybe the things in between the ads that you see on your feed, that's not, again, just as a founder, that's not the point. Yeah, no, that's just what they say the point is, to just get you to look at the ads. Yeah, that's because they're just advertising companies. That's what they get paid money for, all right? That's what they do. So yeah, I haven't used a personal social media account since 2015 because again, I just didn't think the ROI of spending, and again, if you've spent roughly 3 hours a day, like looking at your phone since 2015, which loads of people have, yeah, you've spent over 10,000 hours staring at advertising. And I think that's given you an amazing skill set in being able to predict which ads you're going to see and understanding the advertising world. But I personally think that those businesses are going to go out of business in my lifetime. Yeah, I think like by 2040, Facebook's gone, like done and dusted. And I think it's going to be a big moment for a lot of people on Instagram when Instagram has to delete all the ads. So the reason that you haven't heard of me and the reason I don't have any followers is because, I just personally chose to spend the last decade of my life putting that time, energy, and effort that everyone else put to moving their thumb around on the computer game called Pokemon Go, Instagram. I personally spent that like studying and learning from people and running my business And I've spent 12,000 hours. And this is the last time I checked, by the way. I literally went back through my calendar and was like, okay, how many years have I been doing this and how many hours a week? And I literally worked my way out. Yeah, it was 12,000 hours. I spent 12,000 hours working on this product to try and help the world heal. Because, that's my mission. And so, hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. Why you haven't heard about me on social advertising media. It's not like I didn't want to come and build followers and stuff. I just had to stay in stealth and keep working on my product because I really wanted to make sure, when I dropped out of med school, when I was in med school, I was going to spend the next 10 to 15 years in an apprenticeship, basically. I grew up in the bush, around a lot of tradies, and it's no, I was just going to be an apprenticeship for a long time, And that 10 to 15 year apprenticeship, when I dropped out of med school, I was I've still got to do that. I just need to do it on this mission, this product I think I can create, which can really help the world heal. So to understand the crisis, to understand the Armageddon event that we're in, to understand the anatomy, the structure of how this is functioning and how it's created, so maybe we can do something about it. The first thing to understand is this has been a long time coming. That grandma that was hey, what's happened to our world? I was well, grandma, we're going to sit down and have a long conversation about that. It's quite hard to answer the question of, why did the world become the way that it is? There's going to take 3 seasons, right? 3 seasons of the podcast to really be able to show you maybe 25 to 30 episodes each time to really help you be able to see where we're at and what's going on. All right, so to understand this crisis that we're in, it's going to take us time to really work back through how we got here. This has been a long time coming. Anyone who tries to explain how we got here or the Armageddon crisis in anything less than a bunch of hours, for me, I think you should really challenge that notion. This isn't a simple situation we find ourselves in. And this has been happening for thousands of years. There's been thousands of years of consistent patterns in decision-making by human beings, by groups of human beings who've imagined themselves as a collective, that they're going to take action towards protecting themselves over another group. And if you can understand these patterns, these rhythms from the past, you can really learn to see them today. So basically what I'm trying to say is, to understand this crisis, there's the decision trees, these philosophical arguments that have been made for thousands of years. And if you dig into those arguments, you can start to see how the modern world, this world we're in today, this world we call the modern world, got created. And by understanding those patterns from the past and learning how to see them over thousands of years, you can start to see the tricks that big business play inside of our minds to make us feel powerless. And if you can do that, you can really learn how to see what big business does to your mind. And if you can see the patterns in the past, see them in the present, see them inside your own mind, that's how we can really unlock this. And all of this kind of, knowledge or understanding is based around this concept. There's a couple of concepts woven together here called the Overton window. And if you've never heard of the Overton window, let me give you a bit of a simple definition. Basically, there are these ideas in society that the first time you hear about them, you think they're weird and you never hear about them again. And then there are these other ideas you hear about which start off weird and then eventually go on this journey to become slowly less weird and then maybe cool and then maybe everyone's using it. So a really easy example of this weird to normal is the idea of putting your credit card on the internet. There's a lot of folk who remember back when no one was going to put their credit card on the internet because that was too dangerous because of privacy or whatever, right? But now everyone puts their credit card on the internet, okay? And an easy example of an idea that was weird and they tried to make go normal and it didn't work was the Segway, if you remember that personal transportation device which everyone in the world was going to buy and then no one did. Just started weird and stayed weird. Right? So basically your whole life, without you realizing it, you kind of have this filtering mechanism, almost like a part of your cell inside your mind or a cell inside your mind, whose job it is to kind of help you sift through ideas because there's just so much knowledge in the world and so much information. You got to learn how to sift through and find what's actually going to help you. And one of the ways you do that is really fast and quickly discounting certain ideas in the world as woo-woo or weird or out of touch or illogical or unreasonable. And you discount those ideas really quickly. And then there are some other ideas inside of you which you think are normal and reasonable and scientific and rational, and you've actually never questioned them before. You just kind of accept it. And everyone's culture does this. So every human being who's ever lived, their culture has created this for them, this window of ideas that they think are normal without thinking about it. They think are weird without thinking about it. Another really easy way to see this is if you've ever gone traveling to a foreign country or just gone to a restaurant that serves a different cuisine that you were exposed to growing up. And you'll see they have some animal on the menu which you think's weird to eat. But for them, it's completely normal for them to eat that food. And they actually think it's weird that you think it's weird, right? And you're there looking at their food and you think their food's weird and you think it's normal for you to think that food is weird. Okay, do you see that? How you're both looking at each other and you're both thinking the same thing, if that makes sense. Like, you're both just in this matrix of what's weird and what's normal, and you're kind of sifting through it. Now, this concept, again, it's like the Johari window, the Overton window, there's a bunch of different concepts here I'm weaving together. This is how to start to find, basically, the stories and, I guess, narratives of big business inside of your own mind that have been put there by culture and movies and TV and your education system, and uninstall them. Yeah, so you can regain your sense of powerfulness. You can regain your power. You can know what you want to do in the world, and you can move through the world with your full self. All right, so these first 3 seasons of this podcast, the Anatomy of the Armageddon Crisis, or the Armageddon Anxiety Toolkit, there's basically going to be a season on each of the 3 kind of most responsible aspects of this. Okay, so season 1, I'm going to explain to you how Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates are very, very, very responsible for the climate crisis. And if you're out there and you think Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle were smart, I'd like to formally say to you from one nerd to another, you're a geezer, and you're a bot, and you need to stop saying things out loud. From my perspective, if you want to just be known as someone who understands the truth, just be careful saying stuff out loud that you haven't actually checked. So just off the top of your head, maybe go into Google or YouTube and just type in Socrates trial and just look at some of the hombres who bang on about this geezer Socrates. And again, we're going to do a whole episode on this geezer and on Aristotle and Plato. These guys are such geezers. I genuinely wish I could go into a bar. I don't ever go in bars, I don't drink, but I wish I could go in a bar and just get these 3 guys at a table and be able to ask them questions. All right, so this Socrates, again, we've got so many more receipts. I'm going to show you all this stuff. You're not going to have to believe my word. I'm going to show you how to go look for it. Because there's some people in the world who either are deliberately saying false shit out loud about Socrates, or they haven't read enough books to realize what they're saying out loud is false. And I reckon either one of those doors is pretty awkward. All right, so just off the top of my head, just some fun things I don't tell you about Socrates. All right, so Socrates grew up in a time of a fair bit of war. And Sparta and Athens were actually at war against each other, arguably because Athens was doing some shifty shit with all the money they were supposed to be using to protect everyone. They were instead building buildings. Sparta wasn't so happy about this, so it got a bunch of other people to fight a war against Athens. Sparta won that war against Athens. Sparta then installed basically a military dictatorship in Athens. So they installed 30 tyrants in Athens, and all of the pro-democracy people, they left Athens. They got exiled. So they all left. They're like, oh no, there's these Spartan people ruling us, so they got kicked out. So the government left. They went into exile. So these 30 tyrants ruled Athens, and pretty much the first thing they did was do a cleanse. So they killed about 5% of the population, just straight up dudes going through the streets, murdering people, killed a bunch of famous Athenians, and sold a bunch of people into slavery and stuff. Yeah, very brutal regime. Like one of the darkest times in Athens history. Yeah, so the leader of the 30 tyrants, his name's Critias or something like that, roughly. And yeah, obviously he was one of Socrates' students. Sorry, what? Yeah, so was Archiblades, another one of these guys. Sorry, what? Socrates taught the dictators, the pro-Sparta dictators. That yeah, and you know when all those democracy, those pro-democracy people, you know when they all left Athens, yeah, guess who didn't leave? Socrates. Yeah, he stayed. Wait, what? Yeah. No, Socrates was executed by the people of Athens because he taught dictators how to dictate. Yeah, and Plato was related to some of the 30. Yeah, like cousins, that second remove. I think it was an uncle or a great uncle. Yeah, Plato's all in this stuff too. Wait, what? Sorry, what now? Sorry, what? Plato did what? Yeah. Yeah, and Plato, who was also related and involved with this 30 group, right? Like literally related by family. Yeah, he's the guy trying to write what happened to Socrates, the child of Socrates. And the only other guy that ever wrote anything about it, Xenophon, yeah, he wasn't even in Athens when Socrates was killed. And just in case you forget, yeah, he was living on an estate given to him by Sparta because he betrayed Athens. And Sparta was so pumped that they gave him a place to live. And we're going to go through all of this, by the way. I'm going to show you all the receipts. I'm going to show you all the different places you can prove this to yourself. And the reason these geezers are so responsible is because they created this class system that we've all been educated into thinking is necessary, which we'll talk about in a bit, right? So it's going to be season 1. Not just those 3 dudes, but just really showing you how those 3 guys, bunch of geezers, should really shut up. All right, season 2 is going to be about this thing called Greco-Roman British values. And that's why if you go to Greece and you look at the columns, and then you go to Italy and you look at the columns, and then you go to Britain and you look at the columns, all of the columns kind of look at the same. And I'm going to show you 2 pieces of art, Da Vinci's Mona Lisa and also the Belgian marbles. And just by showing you 2 pieces of art, I'm going to show you how, again, Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates are very responsible. Greco-Roman and British values are that double dose responsible. That's going to be season 2. And then season 3 is going to be about the ultimate and simplest way to explain, how our Earth got here. And that's that hurt people and wounded people wounding people. Like that's the ultimate cause of how we got here. And then once we've covered that, in season 3, we'll get on to season 4, which is what we can do about it. Because there is something we can do about it. And again, just to reiterate, this is not a skeptical podcast. I'm here to help and serve and show you how to make this work. And I've been working on this for a long time. I'm a decade into this. I dropped out of med school 10 years ago. I've been in business ever since. And I'm a founder with a product and a vision that if we can scale that product to 1 billion people and make it free, which I'm very happy to do and I've already done, I really think we can heal the world. Now, there's such an obvious way to do this. There's such an easy and fast path for us to start to take responsibility for Earth's pollution. And there's such an obvious answer. The problem is it's really hard to talk about. And the reason that it's hard to talk about is because of the malware and the viruses that kind of big business has put in our culture. And big business right now is kind of waging this mental war to make us skeptical of the very tools that can help us. And I'm going to try and basically show you how that works by showing you your Overton window kind of live feed. Now, when I say I really think we can heal this world, and there's a really obvious path to healing this world, what I want to do is to kind of define that for you. When I say healing the world, I don't mean eradicating pain, right? Because no matter how long we live here in the earth, and there are hundreds of millions of years, by the way, we can keep living here with the earth in complete harmony if we can just sort our lives out. People are always going to cheat on people. But people are going to fall over and, maybe eat the wrong thing and get sick because of it. People are going to sometimes swim where you shouldn't and get in trouble because of that, or have some interaction with an animal that maybe they didn't need to. People are going to gossip behind people's back. Like, all of that stuff's going to happen, no matter what. That's just going to be here. But this war, this famine, this starvation, this climate crisis, the drug addiction, like all of that, for me, that's suffering. That is human created. That is us deliberately hurting each other for no reason. And I actually think we can get rid of that. And I think there's a path forward for us to be able to look at the world, in a very different way. So again, just to reiterate, I'm like a founder with a vision. Just like, someday someone was like, hey, I'm the first person to ever make a hamburger and I want 1 billion people to try my hamburger. Or someone was like, hey, let's go into the forest and hold our body in really, 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 really interesting positions. And let's call it yoga. You know what I mean? And now everyone's done yoga, or like, first person did meditation, or first person cooked a pizza, or the first app that went to 1 billion people or whatever. Like, just like all those people, all those like entrepreneurs or whatever, however we want to talk about them, those people who wanted to change the world. It's maybe a better way, or help the world. Yeah, I'm just one of those. And I dropped out of med school because I didn't think the medical industry would be able to contend with basically what I was studying, because it is so like hard to talk to people about, because I just really genuinely believe if we can scale it to 1 billion people, and again, I'll make the product free, and I don't like sell, I'm not going to make money from your data or something like that. Yeah, it's just literally free. Yeah, I really think we can do it. And I've been in stealth for 10 years, which is just a fancy pants way of saying, rather than trying to grow my social media advertising, or rather than trying to get a famous podcast or be on the front cover of whatever for the last 10 years, and I've been working on my product. So I've been in business, just like working with people, and I've spent literally 12,000 hours testing my product. I've tested it with over 10,000 people. I mean, that took ages. Like, you can't, I'm talking like person to person or small room, you know what I mean? Not like run a survey and tested it with 10,000 people. It's like, no, literally spoke to 10,000 people. Like, it took ages, it took like 10 years. So before I tell you this product and the solution and this path forward, I need to talk to you about this issue. Big business puts a lot of malware in our culture. And what I want you to think about is that there is these ideas in culture that big business have created. And when we think about them or we engage with them, without us realizing it, we're actually helping big business. Because if you think about your body, like, you only have so many calories every day that you can spend. You only have so many decisions you can spend every day. And right now, we're all spending a lot of our time, energy, and effort doing stuff that's helping big business without even realizing it. And so from my perspective, through the Overton window, through us thinking what's normal and what's weird, and this really subtle manipulation, which has taken a long time for like big business to figure out how to do, they've put these viruses, almost like these Trojan horses, into our stories, where we think, oh yeah, this is a really cool story for us to tell our kids, and we should totally go to the movies and see Star Wars and not think too much about it. And it's totally awesome for us to just watch Game of Thrones, not think too much about it. And what I want to do is to start to show you why we absolutely, mega massively actually should be thinking loads about actually these stories that we're all giving our time and energy and attention to, because they massively influence what we think the future is going to look like. And right now, from my perspective, through stories like Harry Potter, through stories like Star Wars, big oil are actually dominating our kind of consciousness. Our whole zeitgeist, everything we talk about in our culture is just big oil's choices right now. And I'm not trying to suggest that, big oil paid, the author of Harry Potter. What I am trying to tell you is, I don't think we should keep telling the story of Harry Potter, because I think once you analyze the story of Harry Potter from the perspective of big oil, you just see a very different world. You see a very different space open up. Same thing with Star Wars. Like, I really think there's a lot of people in the world who have a Star Wars poster in their room, who think they're good people and probably try and like drive an electric car around because they're trying to help the climate crisis, and they never stop and consider, hey, like, why do you think big business, of all the stories we could have heard, why do you think we tell Star Wars as a story? And maybe big business is strategically implanting that story to really dictate and guide our thoughts. And this is what I mean when I use the analogy of malware. So imagine like if you've got a virus in your computer, you can be using your laptop and for some reason it's moving slowly and it's not using the same power as it normally does, and everything's taking a bit longer. And you kind of can't really figure out why. Like, why is all of this happening? And then you'd go into like your task manager and you see, oh wow, there's this random program that you didn't install, which is sucking up all of this memory. And that memory is being used by some business owners, some entrepreneurs doing some illegal shit somewhere in the world to like hack a computer, or like they're stealing the RAM, they're stealing the energy of your computer without you realizing it and using it for their purposes. And this is what I want to try and show you, Because once you can see this, you can't unsee it. And once you can see this, you'll truly be able to understand what we can do about the Armageddon crisis. Another great example of this is the Nobel Prize. There was a moment, I think it was in 2017, where some climate researchers won the Nobel Prize in physics. And it was heralded as this huge achievement, like, well done, climate research, good job, everybody. Shake hands, the 3 researchers split the $1 million prize. Maybe you don't know, you get a cold hard check for $1 million on average when you win the Nobel Prize. And what I want to show you, and again, this is going to come in season 1, I'm going to explain this to you, is why big oil, the day, like if I was a big oil exec, the day that that Nobel Prize was given out for climate research, I would have been on my yacht having double shots of like caviar, whatever they're doing, caviar tequila, like whatever they're doing, like we're having a party and we're getting all of the other lone wolf people who hate themselves inside to come to the yacht, and all the people from Succession are going to be there, and all the folk from all the rich like Billions shows are going to be there. Yeah, we're going to have the best party ever because we did it. We got him. Oh my gosh, the people are so stupid. I can't believe they just took that. I can't believe we won, everybody. Yeah. And I want to show you the receipts, and I want to prove to you why I think if you're like a just strategically thinking big oil person, you'd also be stoked that the Nobel Prize gave out an award for climate research. And I want to show you the examples of what this means so I can say, hey, what if the Nobel Prize actually isn't this really cool thing for all the kids in the world to grow up and wanting to win? What if it's an award created by big business? What if it's actually a virus that all these people spend their whole life thinking about and running towards and try and create? But actually by doing that and by living that life, a whole bunch of your energy is actually just secretly serving big business. And just because you haven't read enough of history and you don't ask enough questions of why they split the science kids and the history kids up in school, you don't actually see what's happening. And this is what I want to explain it to you. So there's all these Trojan horses, these gifts. We're like, oh yeah, the Nobel Prize, that's a great idea. Star Wars, that's a great idea. We think it's a gift and we bring it in behind our walls and we bring it into our life and in our heart. When in actual fact, nah, man, that's big business and I want to show you how it works. Now, if I tell you about my product, because my product is the actual solution, all that malware is going to activate, and you will actually discount me as a man, as an intellectual, just as a human being. You will not think I can be like academic or I can be logical or rational. If I tell you what my product is, you will actually immediately lower me as an intellectual inside of your mind. And I want to point that out because that is the Overton window. That is the mechanisms of big business working in full effect. Because again, I'm not trying to go viral. I don't think going viral is a good thing to want to do. I think before advertising media came along, the only time you'd ever use the phrase, it's going viral, is if like a computer virus was destroying your computer, or maybe if you were a doctor and someone's like you've got a patient who's about to die because of the virus. And I really think that viruses, if left unchecked, kill their hosts. And I want to see a world where we put our phones down, you know what I mean? That's the world I'm trying to live in. So what I want to do to show you, again, these fables, these stories, these creations, these viruses created by big business, I want to imagine you're at a dinner party. There's dinner parties before COVID or in COVID. And there's a bunch of people sitting around the dinner party and we're eating whatever we eat. Chicken parmigiana, ramen, what do you got? Noodles. What do we eat? Some sort of curry, some sort of like steak and veggie situation, like tacos. I mean, whoever's at tacos, I'm with you. Yeah, right. So like, we're all just like sitting around and you're just like chatting with your mates, okay? And like, there's no members of the 1% present, you know what I mean? You're all just like shooting shit, just talking about what's going on. And what I want to do is imagine that there's a bunch of people in the dinner table and you're all talking about, hey, what do you think's going to happen in the future? Like, of all the different things that could happen, of all the different visions that we can see of the future, like which one do you think is going to happen the most? And what I want to do is to show you a bunch of futures. I'm going to show you a bunch you've heard of before, and I want to feel how you feel in your like body and your mind when you respond to those. And then I'm going to show you the future I'm trying to help create. And I want you to see your Overton window play out. I want you to see this like creation of big business, this automatic response that you never created. You have never sat in a classroom and heard the pros cons list of like the future I'm trying to create or be a part of. but yet you're still going to have a judgment of it. You're still going to have this already existing like opinion, even though you've like never even heard the argument. And I want to show it happen. Okay, so we're sitting around, we're answering the question, what future do you think is going to happen? And here we go. Okay, so the first answer is aliens are coming. Yeah, the most likely thing that I think is going to happen is at some point, some aliens are going to pop up and they're going to come down here on the earth, and then there's aliens. There's something to do with aliens. Okay, so that's future number one, right? So again, you would sit around a dinner table, someone would say, no, I'm pretty sure aliens are real and they're going to come. And you'd think, okay, cool, right? That's a normal thing to think, right? And then you go next. Okay, so next person is AI or AGI is coming. Yeah, we're going to figure it out. The computers are going to like whatever. And I really, really think AI and AGI is real and it's going to happen. And yeah, that's going to be the thing which is going to like happen in the future. Okay, cool. So that's the second person. And that's, again, I've heard people say that stuff out loud before and they're thought of as pretty normal. Like maybe a bit out there, but, acceptable. And you can still invite them back to dinner, right? That they're still an okay person to come back to dinner. All right, the next one is we're going to upload our brain. Yes, so we're going to like figure out how to put our brain into a computer or something. We're going to put a chip inside of us. We're going to upload our memories, and that's what's going to happen. And again, that's obviously like a really normal thing to think, and like a really normal thing to like be inside of and to think about. And again, I've heard people say that stuff before, and like they get invited back to dinner. Okay, and then future 4. This is this fourth future. We're going to go to like another planet. You know what I mean? Yes, let's do it. We're going to go to another planet. That's what I think is going to happen in the future. Right? And again, how would the people respond? Like, I don't think any of you would like spit out, if you were like drinking some OJ or whatever, as the person was like, I think we're going to go to another planet. I don't think you'd spit the OJ out in surprise or something like that. And I think all those people you'd invite back to dinner, you wouldn't think of like cuckoo or anything like that. Because again, there's movies where all of those things happen. There's TV shows where all of those things happen. You know what I mean? Like there's tons and tons and tons of places you can go and watch stuff where that future is what's happening, or an artist is trying to explain and help you understand. And now I'm going to talk to you about the future that I'm trying to help create. Because from my perspective, all of those futures that we just spoke about, those 4 futures, something to do with aliens, something to do with AI, something to do with uploading our brain, and something to do with we're going to another planet, for me, they're all fables. They're all myths. Myths as in myths busted. Yeah, that's all things that need to be debunked and like dismissed. And I hope you can feel it, by the way. I hope you can start to feel the pressure I'm putting on your Overton window. I hope you're starting to feel this inner resistance to what I'm saying. Again, I'm trying to teach you and show you your Overton window inside your own mind so you can start to feel, whoa, yeah, what is going on here with all this stuff big business is doing? Because again, there's entrepreneurs trying to capitalize on all of these worlds, right? Or roughly. Like there's people trying to go into space, trying to find other aliens. There's people trying to build AGI. There's people trying to get you to give them your body when you die, and they'll freeze you and bring you back because they'll figure it out. But there's all of this energy and momentum and understanding. Like again, the governments of the world have like committee meetings about whether or not there's aliens, and they're seeing the footage. Like think about how real and logical and scientific it is to think that aliens are out there somewhere. And what I want to do, and I want to show you the receipts, I want to show you the sources. Again, it's going to take like 3 seasons to get through some of this stuff. Like I want to explain to you why that's like, again, it's like trying to find the Teletubbies. Like literally, people, if you're out there and you believe that aliens are real, from my perspective, you may as well believe Harry Potter's real as well. You may as well believe in the Teletubbies, and yeah, James Bond's real. Yeah. You're gonna find Game of Thrones. Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna go find an actual Lannister. Yeah, no, not the movie character, not the actor. No, an actual Lannister. Oh my gosh, it's so funny, and I want you to feel. So inside of yourself, you should be rejecting what I'm saying. Right now, if again, you've like trained yourself properly according to the rules of big business, maybe without even realizing it. Because here's the future that I want to help my product be a part of. Here's what I want to have happen. And from my perspective, this future is better than all of those other futures. I think if you're a person at home and you want one of these futures to happen, these 5 futures I'm going to talk to you about, including the 5th one that I created or like that I want to help, get behind. I think this is the best option. And I've heard every response there is to this future from, you don't seriously believe that, to you, and like, all right, cuz, and like no further questions, no further conversation, we just move on. not getting invited back to the party because I say stuff like that out loud. That's a bit extreme, man. As if that has ever happened. And we don't believe in fairy tales. I'm like, all right, man, get your head out of la la land. And, why don't you wake up, bro? And like all that energy as well. To just this simple future, which for me is the most logical future there is, actually. It's the most reasonable future for us all to work on. And that's the future where the World Peace Treaty gets signed inside of a millennial's lifetime. And how would you feel about me if I was sitting at your dinner table with your mates and we're all eating curry and tacos and I'm in the middle of eating my taco and it's my turn to say what I think, right? We're like playing Never Have I Ever, but we're saying, what do you think the future's going to be? And it's my turn to go and I say, I think we're going to sign the World Peace Treaty inside of a millennial's lifetime. And I hope I'm one of the millennials who gets to see it. Because you think it's logical and scientific to believe in a world where we're going to be at war forever. You believe it's logical and scientific to think that there's some beings somewhere else out there in the universe who are going to show up here. You think it's logical and scientific for like people to freeze their bodies to hopefully be brought back, or that you're going to upload your brain into a computer. Like you think it's logical and rational for us to go to another planet. But if I start trying to talk about signing the World Peace Treaty, I'm dismissed as a woo-woo, cuckoo, voodoo. Why don't you just go, I don't know, I'm bored, but like, why don't you just like grow some dreadlocks, get a dreadlock transplant, move to a commune and just resist capitalism by taking it to the last pristine places of the world? But I want to show you the receipts. I just want to have the ability to make the argument. Why can't you let me make the argument? Again, think about how many hours you've spent thinking about aliens, watching TV shows about aliens, talking to your mates about the TV shows. Think about how much time and energy and effort you've put into thinking about us going to another planet, watching that movie with Matt Damon where he put a potato into a set somewhere in California or wherever they filmed that movie. And because of that, you're like, yeah, we're totally going to be able to live on another planet. Like, think about how much time and energy and effort as a culture, how many shows on Netflix there are about all of those futures. And yet there isn't a single show anywhere on Netflix where the people of the earth sign the World Peace Treaty and just live in peace. Yeah, just so you know, one of the things I'm going to show you at some point in this podcast is like the Disney ads for big oil. Like literally Mickey Mouse carrying the like standard oil like logo type stuff. Like, yeah, I really hope you can start to see that they've built these mirages, and I'm going to use the tools of rationality and science or whatever to show you their mirages. Because imagine if I said, hey, I really think we need as a culture to find the Teletubbies. Let's build a bunch of telescopes and try and find them. You would think I'm crazy, but the search for extraterrestrial intelligence or life, whatever the friggin' hell that program's called, like I can go to Harvard and get a job if I believe in that future. But where's the World Peace Department at Harvard? So from my perspective, those futures that I was telling you about are designed to distract us, to make us think that we can go somewhere else, to make us think that AGI is going to come along and fix everything for us, to make us think that we don't have to worry about our bodies because we can just upload our brains and escape this reality, or that like some aliens are going to come and like we're just going to have to deal with them, instead of all of the people of the earth having to figure out the problems of the earth together and us having to rely on people instead of tools. If logic is good and rationality is good, then the most logical and reasonable future for us to pursue is the future where logic and reason are able to be studied the longest. And that is the future of peace. But let me tell you this other reason why we need to get to world peace. If you're a person out there and you want the climate crisis to end, you want us to stop emitting, you're a person who believes we should reduce the emissions of the world. Let me tell you a couple of facts about what they probably haven't told you so far. So already, about 8 million people a year die because of air pollution, completely preventable deaths, if we had have just thought a little bit better about how we wanted to build our world. And of those 8 million deaths, and again, I'll show you the receipts, of those 8 million deaths, 5 million of them come from like burning coal or, burning like fossil fuels, basically for energy. So about 5 million deaths a year, people coughing, getting lung cancer, like all sorts of stuff already per year die because of the air pollution of the climate crisis. Now, if you add in all of the other deaths from like heat and war and famine, again, there's a bunch of different estimates here, but there's roughly another couple of million happening there, which if we just average that out to roughly 8 million a year, there's a COVID amount, like the worst year of COVID is happening every single year already. And think about the newspaper headlines during COVID, and think about all the podcasts during COVID, and think about how much the governments of the world changed during COVID, and think about how much we changed our lives during COVID and how much we changed our behavior. And if we did all of that to protect the herd, to stop the amount of deaths that were happening, then we should be doing that for the climate crisis, but also realizing we may never leave. Because COVID was like we were in and we were out. It might be a long time, centuries and centuries maybe. But we don't want to talk about this. So let's just talk about what's happening on Instagram. Yeah, let's talk about the post-truth age. Yeah, let's talk about AI. Yeah, that's a great time. Yeah, let's invest. Again, Microsoft just invested $80 billion in AI. Why did they invest $80 billion in AI instead of investing $80 billion in world peace? Now, even if we don't fight any wars, right? Now, again, it's hard to find an exact estimate for this, but even if we didn't fight any wars, the militaries of the world, all of the militaries of the world, again, they talk about ancient history and modern history in school, and no one ever asks, why did they do that? Like, why? Just to be clear, like, why split ancient and modern roughly around Napoleon? And the reason that they did that is because that's like big oil. Yeah, oil got created, and all the stuff in the modern militaries is just all comes from oil, right? Like again, you can't fly a plane without oil. You can't drive a tank without oil. You can't float a ship very far without oil. You can't make a sub go very far without oil. Now again, you might think you can get a submarine with like a nuclear reactor, but again, that thing is still going to need oil somewhere in the edge of champ. Like again, without oil, you can't do any of it. None of the modern military works without oil. Okay, so all the jets, all the tanks, all the aircraft carriers, all the stealth fighters, like all that stuff, it all takes fuel. And just to defend our borders, so just if all the militaries of the world like defending their borders and not attacking each other, right? Just defending their borders is roughly somewhere between 3 and 7% of the emissions of the world. So if we want to stop emitting, if we want to end the climate crisis and we want to stop emitting, we have to take our militaries of the world off planes and we got to go back. We cannot. This right here. This is what we need to talk about as a culture. Like this is the conversation big business are trying to stop us from having, because the only rational solution for human beings to be able to stop emitting is for us to demilitarize. Like we can't run a modern military without oil. So if we're going to get rid of all the oil, we have to get rid of the modern military. You cannot, like all the tanks have to stop being made. Like I'm not joking. Like all the ships, like all the aircraft, like, so how come we're not having this mad conversation as a culture right now about this? Why aren't all the artists of the world talking about this? Why aren't all the movies of the world trying to get this to happen? The answer is because we're too busy going viral. Yeah. We literally, if you're out there and you're like, I want us to stop emitting, well, then you also need the World Peace Treaty to be signed, because unless they sign the World Peace Treaty, they're never going to demilitarize. And unless we demilitarize, they're going to keep burning oil in their modern militaries. And if we keep burning oil, we just kill the earth. So what I want to show you is we have an incorrect definition of logic. You think it's more logical to believe in aliens than it is to believe and be working on trying to get the World Peace Treaty signed. And that's because our definition of logic is like factually incorrect. Aristotle, that geezer, created this definition of logic a long time ago, and his definition of logic 2,000 years later got corrected. Imagine Aristotle is like this weird dude just like saying all this stuff out loud. He's like a life coach of like Stalin, right? Like imagine Stalin, like whoever was in Stalin's circle to make Stalin feel good about being Stalin. Yeah, that's who Aristotle is. Yeah, because obviously like Alexander the Great was probably the most evil person to ever live and just butchered people, all because his dad gave him his whole empire.
Yeah. Alexander Great's the ultimate silver spoon. You know, at least Genghis Khan had to earn it. Whatever. All right, so yeah, obviously Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, some of the greatest mass murderers who've ever lived, the most evil people who've ever lived. Obviously Hitler would have loved Aristotle, would have loved Alexander, be like, oh my gosh, get closer. Stalin, Pol Pot, Saddam Hussein. Like, think about Saddam Hussein, one of Saddam Hussein's like life coach type people. That's who Aristotle is. Again, I'll show you all the receipts. All right, so Aristotle's just this random dude who just was randomly like, hey, logic's black and white, and logic's the best thing for us to study, and you can't even question whether or not logic is the best thing to study without being seen as illogical. That's the Overton window. If I question whether or not free speech and logic are ultimate things for us to be pursuing as a society, I am immediately on the defensive for some people. That's so weird, eh? And that's because Aristotle made this statement like, yeah, philosophy is like this. And without realizing it, 2,000 years later, this guy called Kurt. Now, you don't know who Kurt is, but you know who Bert is. I'll tell you who Bert is in a second. Bert and Kurt used to walk home together. They worked at the same like education structure. And when they walked home together, they talked about Kurt's work. They didn't talk about Bert's work. And that's because Bert thought Kurt was smarter. He literally was like, the reason I'm at this education structure or education facility is because Kurt is here and I get to walk home with Kurt. And Bert is obviously Albert Einstein. Yeah, and Kurt Gödel, who's a guy I'm going to talk to you a lot about in this podcast, 2,000 years after Aristotle said logic is the best and it's the most supreme and it's consistent and certain and reason is the ultimate tool we should be using and reason is black and white and it's all, you know, like logic and true and false. Basically, Kurt put that idea of logic in math and math came back and said, no, Aristotle, you're wrong. And so I want you to imagine Aristotle's like this pithy dude in a court, but like, yeah, I've got all these philosophical ideas. And then Kurt showed up, threw him a basketball, demanded he play him in a competitive game of 21 and just beat him up and down the court, like in front of the bright lights in front of everyone. And we can't talk about it because if we did talk about it, we'd have to talk about Aristotle and his homeboys, the soccer droids. That's who I call all the droids of the world, the bots. The people who just say a script out loud every day, they're not actually authentically creating them thoughts. They just say someone else's thoughts. They just make someone else's decision. They're just living in a simulation. All those soccer droids, those Socrates droids. You know, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and Plato in particular, like they created this idea of this three-tiered system that we live in today, where there's the 1%, so there's the billionaires and the dictators and the people that we know if they go in front of the court, they're not going to jail. Okay, the people who get to make the rules, the dictators, the 1%, the billionaires. Okay, that's like they're number one. They rule us because they're the smartest. And then you have the second smartest group of people, and that's like everyone in the movie Succession, and everyone in the movie like Billions, and all the people from like Mad Men, and like big finance and big advertising, and like all the prestigious people who go to Harvard. Yeah, I go to Harvard because I went to Stanford. Yeah, like all of those people, like the big finance, big politics. So there's like the 1%, and then there's like all the people who live in all the big like cities and all the big fancy penthouses and help to like 1% with their bureaucracy. And then there's us, the 99%. That three-tiered system. So the upper class, middle, like elites, upper class, and then there's the rest. Yeah, so basically him, Socrates, and Plato, like definitely Plato in particular, they came up with that idea. And that idea still plays out today. And that's why I want to talk to you about these consistent decision trees, these arguments that have been made for thousands of years, these choices that have been made, which have got us into this situation. Again, that idea that society should be split into three levels: the people who rule, the people who help the people rule, and then the ruled, like all of us who are just stupid people who need to be told what to do and should feel powerless. Yeah. The reason we can't talk about Kurt Gödel is because he killed Aristotle. Like Aristotle shouldn't be talked about anymore because he was incorrect. And Kurt proved it, but we still talk about him. So what if this system of education and the kind of world isn't doing what we think? What if big oil created politics? It's a great question I like asking people. You know, if we were ever going to sign the demilitarization treaty, or if we were ever going to sign the climate treaty that actually stopped emissions, we would probably sign it at the UN. Like you'd think that's where people would think to sign the treaty. most people don't realize that the Rockefellers, probably the people who profited maybe the second most of big oil. It's a bit hard to calculate what you terms of profit. I think there is a family that is more responsible than the Rockefellers, but Rockefellers are probably family 2 or 3 up there. And they're definitely on the Mount Rushmore of people who are responsible for the climate crisis. And most people don't realize that family donated the land that the United Nations in New York is built on, which I think is a rather important symbol for us to think about. Wait, what? Big oil bought the land that the whole nations of the world meet on? What if big oil created, the best places in the land to get educated? Like Stanford and Harvard, or Oxbridge, Oxford and Cambridge. What if big oil was mission critical? And if we think about big oil as big mining, what if they were all mission critical in creating all of this? A lot of people don't know. Again, that same family who donated that money to the UN at one point donated $100 million to Harvard. And Harvard every single year has taken tens of millions of dollars literally straight from the big oil companies. It's amazing the amount of money Harvard makes from big oil. They obviously, in their endowments, they had hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of big oil stock as well. And then also, what happens if big oil created the Nobel Prize? And I'm going to make this argument to you in this season that 26 times at least, big oil created the university, paid for the research in the university, and also paid for the Nobel Prize that was given, or at least partially, that was given to someone at least 26 times. Big oil, I think, has just created the whole reward system of science clear as day. And I think it's really cool to see it. And what I want to ask you is, what if Harvard, this elite best education system in any land, what if they're teaching an incorrect definition of logic? And it's because everyone just goes there and drinks the Kool-Aid. No one goes there and asks questions. Because what if Harvard is a thinkery? And if you don't know what a thinkery is a place where you teach people how to make weak ideas strong, because basically you want to manipulate the finance world, roughly. It's a little bit more than that, but that's roughly what that means. Again, we'll talk about that in the future. All right, so I really think we need a new approach. I think we need to stop thinking hey, this is going to happen in anything else other than the people. The elites are clearly not going to do anything about this, and I want to help you put the power back in your hands. I want you to feel like you have power in your life. I want you to feel like you can take action in your life. I'm going to really I want to show you how to do this for yourself. And when I say power, what I mean by that word is the power to create movement. I want you to see what you can do about this. I want you to see how you can help, and really kind of how you can help the world and really move us forward. Now, in terms of thinking of how we can kill big business, I want you to think about it in terms of a bacteria. There's just again, I'm not talking about killing the people, but this idea of big business, right? How do we just get rid of that? And what I want you to think about is bacteria. And what we could do is try and train our immune system, try and train our mind, and train our kind of awareness to be able to recognize the thoughts of big business, to be able to recognize the stories and the fables of big business. Because I really genuinely, in my heart of hearts, believe if everyone in the world realized we can't go to another planet, AGI is not coming, aliens aren't coming either, and we're not going to be able to upload our brain into a computer, then the only solution left for all of us is people and compassion and respect and dignity and love and all these things we think are weak. If we were able to, I think, more accurately distill the futures of big business, actually be able to see as the path forward. So I'm going to try and show you how to train your mental immune system. Just like we can give you something to train your immune system to make you better at defending viruses, I want to train your immune system, train your antivirus kind of inside of your life to help you seek and destroy these futures of big business so we can really build our own. So what I want to do is to split the businesses of the world that you engage with in your life into 2 categories. All right, category number 1. Now, category number 1 are all of the businesses that existed even before we invented money. And I'm really excited to talk to you about the history of money and which group of individual people decided that money would be a good idea and why they had decided to start digging up metal from the earth and force you to have some of that metal before you could take some water from the stream. And before that started happening, all of these businesses still existed. The community still had to find a way to provide this for everyone in the tribe. Okay, so we've got food, healthcare, healing, shelter, movement. So maybe you need to move something from A to B, right? Learning, so you need to get education. You might need to be warm, right? So like you need fire, and then eventually like power. Maybe you need something to be able to move something, all right? So I want you to think about that. Like all of those businesses have existed forever. Like human beings have been helping each other do that since day one, right? And then there are these other businesses, these toxic businesses like fast fashion, social media and advertising, Coke and Pepsi and McDonald's, TAB and gambling, all the makeup companies in the world, Ferrari, all the companies that sell caviar, all the really, really, really fancy pants hotels that you and I know we'll never go to. Right, all the penthouses, like all the penthouse companies and the really elite travel companies and all the private jet businesses. Like all of those businesses, they're all toxic. And they've only started happening since we created money. Now, what I want to do is to show you a very simple way we could just eradicate these toxic businesses of the world. Very, very simple way. And that's because, again, as a founder, I never expected to be a founder. I was in med school. I think people who run businesses are shifty. You know what I mean? That's some shifty shit if you're running a business. Like, I wanted to be in medicine because I would never have to charge anyone for money. You know what I mean? Just the government would pay for it all. But I had to drop out and start this business, and chose to build a business because I think it can scale. And there's such an obvious solution to Earth's pollution if we can take this product. This thing I still haven't told you yet. Because again, in the first sentence, I could have said, hey, I'm Matt. I'm a founder with a vision to get 1 billion people to use my product. And my product is this. But you would have discounted me. You wouldn't have taken this seriously. And that's because of the Overton window installed by big business. And my part to play in this whole solution is that all of those businesses, right? So like Prada, the makeup companies, Macca's, Pepsi, social media, they all rely on the same gap in our immune system. They all rely on the same gap in our defenses. They all rely on the fact that we feel worthless. And we all have a deep sense of worthlessness and feeling like we are not enough. And every single one of those companies operates on this same product, whether it's a car, whether it's a Coke, or whether it's some makeup. It's you feel worthless and not enough. Change yourself with our products and you will feel different. And what I want to do is to plug that gap, because my product and what I dropped out of medical school to spend my whole life studying and try and give to the world is, from my perspective, I believe that self-love is a skill. And I believe that just like we didn't know how to lift weights and then we did, and we didn't know how to do yoga and then we did, and we didn't know how to do Pilates and then we did, and we didn't know how to cook a pizza and then we did, I dedicated my whole life and dropped out of med school to trying to show people how to take real self-love and put it in their life to plug all of the gaps inside of themselves that big business can take advantage of, and to totally resist the system of chaos and war outside of yourself by being the change you want to see in the world, and by building a life of inner peace and inner love inside of yourself. That you can take responsibility for what's happening outside the world by being the type of person that we need to see inside of the world that would be at peace. You can literally be the person who would exist inside of the world where we sign the World Peace Treaty in a millennial's lifetime now. And that is how we can start to bring that future into reality. So what would happen if 1 billion people love themselves? If 1 billion people chose voluntarily to bring this new practice, this new skill set, this new idea into their life, and just like 1 billion people have played basketball, what if we could get 1 billion people to play self-love? And what would happen if love was the ultimate solution to Earth's pollution? Because as a millennial, I've always often wondered, how are we going to explain it to the next generation, to our grandkids? How are we going to explain the boomers to them? Because obviously the boomers die at some point. And when that happens, we will write the history of this moment. Yeah, and it doesn't matter what anyone's saying out loud about this moment now. It matters what the future generations think. And I'm really here to help you. And I really want you to believe in our victory. And I hope you can see in the way that I've created this podcast, this fractal cast, this first episode, I did it to show you the Overton window. I really hope a part of you discounted me when I said self-love out loud. And I really hope you can see that part of you as something it wasn't in geography class or English class where you learned why self-love is stupid. And yet you still learned it. I don't think that was an accident. And I want to prove it to you. So the next 5 episodes, we're going to work our way back through a bunch of stuff that I just spoke about and show you the receipts. The next episode, episode 2, is going to be about why believing in aliens means you're bad at science. And I don't care which fancy pants scientist went to which fancy pants thinkery that you can see on YouTube who thinks aliens are real. I'm going to prove to you, not as an argument from weird authority, but as an argument from the facts of science, that no, it's insane. Literally, like, that's cuckoo to think aliens are real. And you can think I'm cuckoo for thinking it's cuckoo to think aliens are real. That's fine, but it doesn't really matter because either aliens are real or they're not. You know what I mean? We can both go outside. I can point to the sky, say it's blue. You can point to the sky, say it's purple. At the end of the day, the sky's the color of the sky. Doesn't matter what we feel. Either aliens are out there or not. And what I want to offer to you is the argument isn't are aliens real or not. The argument is, are aliens real? Or if aliens are not real, why are we spending so much time talking about them, making movies about them? Why do so many kids have posters of aliens in their rooms? Why do the Marvel movies have so many aliens in them? And why do the governments of the world have meetings about whether or not they're seeing footage of aliens through their radars? Why is the idea of an alien, if aliens aren't real, saturating our culture? By the way, there's an answer to that question. If you're willing to answer it, again, you'll start to understand why this world has happened. Okay, so that's episode 2. Episode 3 will be why AI is turning you into a bot. Yeah, and there's no such thing as artificial intelligence. You just need to call it Internet 2.0. I call it the second net. Obviously, those things are super helpful, but it's not a form of artificial intelligence. It's literally just statistics and probability. Yeah, I'm just going to explain it to you. I'm going to explain to you why, again, Kurt killed the idea of AGI. Okay, that third episode, so this will be episode 4, will be called Severance, why we need to break up with fables. And this will be why we need to break up with this idea we're ever going to be uploading our brain onto a computer or anything stupid like that, or that we live in a simulation, or just any of those bogus fake arguments that people never even back up. The next episode after that will be the Cost of Living Crisis New Planet Edition, or the Cost of Living Crisis Second Planet Edition. I want to talk to you about how absurd it is to think that we're ever going to go to another planet. Like, why would we even want to do that? I don't understand the positive argument. Imagine how much your pizza's going to cost. Imagine how cold it's going to be having to ship it from planet Earth. But I saw Matt Damon put a potato in some dirt so we can grow food on another planet, says all the bots. Yeah, all right, guys. And then the next one after that, I'm going to show you how self-love will kill big business. I'm going to talk to you about my free product, talk to you about how the free product works, and then like literally give it to you and show you how you can get out there and start using it. And again, I want to show you the receipts because the only way for this work, again, this is called starting the wave. I want to start a wave of people who are willing to normalize the idea that love can be the answer, and it's just self-love. You just love yourself, and we can learn how to turn this whole world around. Yeah, so from the bottom of my heart, I really want to say thanks, especially if you're here, maybe 100 people or whatever might listen to this episode when it first goes up, and I'm really grateful to have all your support. Thanks so much to the members of the Wolf Pack who are out there listening to this, who were crazy enough to believe me when they came into a room and had this guy with a bald head and who's a ranger, who's a geezer, get up and say, self-love can change your life more than any other skill you'll ever learn. And the purpose of maybe the whole reason that everything's here is for us to learn how to love ourselves. And I dropped out of med school because I used to have PTSD. I used to be a drug addict. I used to be filled with self-hatred and violence. And I had no plan for my life. And I've turned my life, which was legitimately a nightmare, into my dream life. And the only thing that changed was self-love. And my purpose and mission here in this lifetime is to try and give as many people, hopefully billion, I'm going to get to 1 billion first, self-love. And that's my mission as a founder. Yeah, and I want to be a founder you can trust because I'm trying to kill big business with my product. Like, I'm a strategic founder who wants to put all of those hombres and all their big business boats, like, I want their businesses to end as like a person playing in the market, you know what I mean? Like, I want to, and I want your help. And I don't need any of your money. Yeah, I just want you to, again, we're going to get to episode 6 before I show you how to get there. I just want you to try my free product, and I want you to love yourself and keep listening to this, and just please choose joy and don't give up hope. And even if you can feel my confidence in our impending victory, just use a little bit of my confidence if you need to. We're going to figure this out. All those weird billionaires and their mates who just gloat on their boats about how they're the most, they're not going to kill us. Okay? They're not going to kill us. We can figure this out, and we will figure this out, because the spirit of the people is not something that can be killed. And you might think I'm woo-woo or airy-fairy or whatever it is for thinking this stuff out loud, and that's perfectly fine. I just ask you to respect that I believe everything that I say out loud, to the point that this has been my mission for over a decade now. And I dropped out of med school, and I'm just really trying to help. So it's been a privilege to serve you in this first episode, and I really look forward to the future together. And I really hope that, we can build a more peaceful world. Thanks so much for listening, and I really look forward to speaking to you in the second episode.